My name is Jean Lewis. I'm 28 years old, and this is the story of how I learned that sometimes silence speaks louder than love. For most of my life, I believed stability was the highest form of devotion, that showing up, keeping promises, and remaining calm in storms was what made a person worthy of love. I thought that if I could be dependable enough, strong enough, steady enough, then nothing would shake the foundation of a relationship. I thought wrong. Ethan and I met during our last year of college. I was a finance major already locked into a job offer before graduation, with color coded planners and a 5 year trajectory mapped out in my head. Ethan was the opposite, an art student, with paint on his jeans, messy curls, and a voice that could command a room without trying. He was magnetic, unpredictable in a way that made everyone lean toward him, as though they might catch a spark. We seemed like opposites, but for a while we fit. I was structure, he was chaos. And somehow the combination worked. The first 2 years were good, better than good. I covered rent when he was between jobs, ordered cheap wine for his gallery showings, and even built him a small website to showcase his work when he couldn't afford one. Ethan would paint until 2 in the morning, and I'd bring him tea, rubbing his aching shoulders until he fell asleep on the couch. I thought we were building something real life where my steadiness could anchor his wildness. When we graduated, we moved in together. I started full-time at a mid-sized financial firm. Nothing glamorous, but the climb was steady. Ethan bounced between waitering gigs, internships at galleries that never paid, and eventually landed part-time at a boutique art space. I didn't mind supporting him. I thought that's what love was giving when your partner was struggling, knowing someday it might balance out. At first, Ethan appreciated it. He would tell me I made him feel safe, grounded. He'd call me his rock. And for a while, I believed that was enough. But appreciation has a way of curdling into resentment. It started small, a comment here and there. You're too comfortable just working your 9 to 5. Don't you ever want to do something big? You're always so calm. It's like nothing touches you. I'd laugh it off, tell myself he was just stressed. Artists went through phases, right? But those words began to sting in places I didn't want to admit, because part of me feared he was right. Maybe my calm wasn't strength. Maybe to him it was boredom. And yet I stayed steady. I kept showing up. I told myself this was what partners did. That if I kept pouring in enough patience, enough love, eventually he'd stop seeing me as invisible. But the truth, the cracks had already started forming. And deep down, I think Ethan knew it too. Ethan's world started to expand in ways that no longer included me. It began with his new circle at the gallery. Younger artists, loud, reckless, endlessly online. They thrived on late-night pop-ups, rooftop mixers, underground shows with hazy lighting and cheap beer. Every invite seemed to mysteriously exclude me. I told myself it was fine. He needed his own space. Not everything had to include me. But each time he slipped out the door, I felt a quiet ache, the kind you don't talk about because you're afraid of sounding needy. Then came Isla. She was new at the gallery, a sculptor from Portland, with dyed hair, chipped black nail polish, and a confidence that came off as effortless rebellion. Ethan's friends adored her like she was some underground icon they had just discovered. The first time I met her, I'd stopped by the gallery to pick Ethan up. Isa was leaning against a pedestal, talking with her hands, rings flashing under the dim light. She looked at me the way you'd look at a substitute teacher, polite but disinterested. She didn't even shake my hand. Just a half smile and a dismissive, "Oh, so you're Ethan's girlfriend." And like my presence was an afterthought, like being his partner was a role that didn't matter. After that, her name became a regular guest in our home. Isa thinks I should experiment with bigger canvases. Isa says my work has depth most people don't notice. Isa and I just see art the same way. At first, I brushed it off. I had never been the jealous type, but then Ethan's habits began to change. He started hiding his phone when I walked by. Texts that made him smile ended abruptly when I asked who it was. Nights he used to spend painting at home turned into hours out with friends coming back with incense and beer on his clothes. When I asked how his night went, he'd shrug. It was fine. Don't worry about it. The more I tried to reach for answers, the more he made me feel like the crazy one. Seriously, Jean, you're being paranoid. I thought you were more secure than that. That stung. He knew I avoided drama, that I prided myself on being composed. He used it like a blade, cutting me down for even daring to question him, so I stopped asking. I told myself, trust me, silence. But my gut twisted with every dismissive laugh, every hidden screen. And then the truth slipped into my hands casually, accidentally, as betrayal often does. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was scrolling Instagram stories when one from Jess, an old college friend of Ethan's, caught my eye. A rooftop bar, a clinking toast, laughter echoing through the background. I tapped lazily until the fourth clip froze me cold. There was Ethan sitting beside Isla. Her hand rested on his thigh, his arms stretched behind her, claiming space that used to belong to me. The angle wasn't even deliberate. Jess had been filming the toast, but it was enough. I stared at that image until the edges of the screen blurred. Then I took a screenshot. My hand shook, but my face stayed still, and I didn't say a word. Not that night, not the next. Not until I was sure I could look him in the eye and let him lie to me before I walked away for good. 2 days. That's how long I waited after the rooftop story. 2 days of silence, pretending everything was normal, while my mind replayed that image like a film reel I couldn't turn off. I wanted to see him lie, to watch his face, his mouth, his eyes when I asked. I wanted the confirmation, not just suspicion. Tuesday night, we were both home. He was curled up on the couch, phone in hand, scrolling with that casual smirk. I sat across from him, eyes fixed on the TV, but not seeing a thing. Every once in a while, he'd glance at me like checking if I was still in my quiet little box. Dependable Jean. Steady Jean, the girlfriend who never made a fuss. I waited until the movie credits rolled before I spoke. So I asked casually, "How was the gallery mixer Saturday?" He didn't even look up. Fine. Kind of boring, honestly. Just artists and staff, right? Yeah. Why I reached into my phone, pulled up the screenshot, and held it out between us. The glow of the screen cut the space like a blade. His smile faltered for a second. His eyes registered the truth. Her hand, his arm, the intimacy. Then, like a mask sliding into place, he scoffed. Wow. So now you're spying on me. I laughed once sharp. Spying Jess posted it. You just forgot she follows me too. He leaned back, running a hand through his hair, theatrics in full swing. First of all, that's out of context. We were just sitting close. It was loud. Her hand was on your thigh, Ethan. So what? His voice snapped, defensive. You never touch me like that anymore. The words sliced through me for a heartbeat. I couldn't breathe. You never want me to anymore, I said quietly. Don't flip this on me. He jumped up, pacing like he was preparing a speech for a courtroom. You know what? Maybe if you actually made me feel something, I wouldn't need that attention. My jaw tightened. So you do need it from her. He stopped halfway between the living room and the kitchen. His chest heaved. Issa sees me, Jean. She listens. She pushes me creatively. With you, I feel managed, handled, like a task you check off every day. Every memory, nights of carrying him through rejections, saving money to cover his rent, listening. When he cursed the world, all of it shrank to dust in the shadow of those words. And then came the smirk, that cruel little twist of his lips, the one that said he wasn't just admitting betrayal, he was proud of it. If you were really a woman, he sneered, you'd fight for me. Something inside me stilled. He expected tears, screams, maybe a desperate plea, a performance he could measure his worth against. But instead, I stood slowly, deliberately. I walked past him, opened the hall closet, and pulled out my old backpack. I began placing a few essentials inside a sweater, wallet, charger. Each item folded neatly as if order could protect me from the storm. What are you doing? His voice cracked somewhere between confusion and panic. Getting out of your way. Wow. His laugh was sharp, mocking. So that's it. You're just going to leave. No fight, no nothing. I zipped the bag, swung it over my shoulder, and faced him. Real strength isn't clinging to a liar, I said softly. It's walking away. For the first time that night, his mask slipped. Shock flickered across his face, quickly replaced by rage. You're being so dramatic. No. I met his eyes with steady calm. I'm being done. And with that, I turned open in the door and stepped into the night without looking back. I didn't cry that night, not when I walked out, not when I drove across town and crashed on my brother's couch, not even when Ethan's first text lit up my phone. Jean, you were overreacting. We didn't sleep together. Jean, please don't make this worse than it needs to be. I powered the phone off and slept harder than I had in weeks. The next morning, I moved money out of our shared account. I sent a polite email to our landlord requesting my name be taken off the lease. My things, the few I cared about, fit into 2 suitcases. I didn't shout. I didn't post online. I didn't tell mutual friends my side. I just disappeared. And in that silence, something powerful happened. At first, Ethan didn't notice. Or maybe he thought he could wait me out. Week 1 passed with no contact beyond those texts. I imagined he expected me to cool down, to crawl back with a "can we talk?" or "I just want closure." That's what he'd gotten from others before me. But my silence unsettled him more than anger ever could. By week 2, he was loud again. Not with me, but online. Stories of him and Isa at rooftop bars, cocktails raised, high captions dripping with bravado. Living, not apologizing. In one photo, Isa leaned into him, laughing like nothing in the world had consequences. I won't lie, seeing it clenched my jaw. For a moment, I wondered if walking away had really been strength or just cowardice. But then I reminded myself I was no longer in the game. And that's when the cracks began to show. The flood of couple photos slowed. Posts shifted from champagne to cryptic captions. People always disappoint you. Some things aren't worth saving. By week 4, Ethan wasn't posting Isla at all. The truth came from Jess, the same friend whose rooftop video had exposed him. She messaged me out of the blue. "Hey Jean, just checking in. You doing okay?" I kept it short. "Fine, thanks." Then came her second message. I didn't know he was seeing Isla when I posted that. "I'm sorry you had to find out like that." I didn't respond, but she kept going. For what it's worth, I don't think things are going great. He's not what she thought. He's angry, controlling, always starting fights at the gallery. Rumor is he threw a stool at someone after they criticized his work. I stared at those words. Part of me wanted to laugh, bitter, hollow. Ethan had traded my calm for chaos, and now chaos was devouring him whole. By week 5, Eel disappeared from his feed entirely. No tags, no mentions, just Ethan alone posting vague quotes about betrayal. And I sat in my new apartment, small, clean mine, with bare walls and secondhand furniture. For the first time in years, there was no one storming in at 2:00 a.m. No phone to hide, no smirk daring me to beg. The silence was deafening at first, but soon it felt like freedom. Week 10. By then, I had almost stopped checking for his shadow. My days were steady workouts, small dinners with friends who never made me question my worth. I was starting to breathe again without realizing I'd been holding my breath for years. Then one Saturday afternoon I saw him. Ethan was sitting on the front steps of my building, hoodie pulled, tight shoulders slumped. For a moment I didn't recognize him. Not because his face had changed, but because his confidence was gone. It deflated like a balloon that had lost its air. He stood quickly when he saw me, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Hey," he said. "Figured you wouldn't answer if I texted again." I gripped the grocery bags in my hands tighter. "You figured right." "Please," he stepped closer, blocking my way. "Just 5 minutes." I didn't want a scene in front of neighbors. With a sigh, I set my bags down and crossed my arms. 5 minutes. Talk. He looked down at the concrete, then back at me with a practiced, wounded expression. "I messed up. I know I did. But you didn't even try to stop me. You didn't fight for me, Jean." I almost laughed. The words were absurd, but the ache behind them was real. Fight for you. You made it clear what you wanted. Isa, the chaos, the sparks. Remember, he flinched as though hearing his own choices spoken aloud burned. "I thought she got me," he admitted. His voice cracked. "But she doesn't. She doesn't care. She tears me down. I miss how safe I felt with you, how steady things were." There it was, the classic plea. I'd seen it in stories online 100 times. Didn't realize what I had until it was gone. I shook my head slowly. "You didn't want steady, you called it boring. You wanted chaos. And now that chaos has a cost, you come crawling back. I'm saying I made a mistake." He insisted, stepping forward. "Can't you see that you said you love me?" I did. I cut him off, past tense. His jaw tightened, desperation slipping into anger. "So that's it. You're just going to throw away 3 years like it meant nothing." I held his gaze steady as ever. "You threw it away, Ethan." I just accepted it. For a moment, silence stretched between us. His shoulders sagged, eyes hollow. He looked like he might cry or lash out, but instead he shoved his hands into his pockets and muttered, "Guess I was right. You never fight for anything." I I leaned down, picked up my groceries, and stepped past him. My voice was calm, but each word struck with finality. Love shouldn't need a battlefield, Ethan. It should feel like home. I unlocked the door, walked inside, and closed it without another glance. He didn't follow. 6 months later, life had shifted in ways I hadn't thought possible. My apartment no longer felt like a temporary escape. It felt like mine. Work with steady promotions on the horizon. I laughed more, slept better, even started hiking again on weekends. The silence that once scared me had become a sanctuary. So when the wedding invitation arrived, I almost said no. It was for Tyler, an old college friend. Part of me dreaded the small talk, the reunions, the possibility of bumping into people who still knew me as Ethan's girlfriend. But my closest friends convinced me, you deserve a night to celebrate something good. The venue was beautiful. An outdoor garden with string lights woven through tall trees. Linen suits and flowing dresses swaying under warm air. For once, I wasn't walking into a space carrying Ethan's chaos on my shoulders. I was just Jean Hull on my own. Halfway through a drink at the reception, I saw him. Ethan stood near the back patio, nursing a glass of wine like it was the only thing keeping him upright. His once bright eyes were dull, shoulders slouched. Even his clothes hung differently, like life had been slowly hollowing him out. Beside him, Jess chatted animatedly with another friend. Ethan barely responded, gaze restless, searching. And then it landed on me. For 2 seconds, we locked eyes. Just 2 seconds, enough for him to know I saw him. Then I turned back to my conversation, calm and unmoved, as though he were a stranger passing by. A few minutes later, Jess walked over alone. "Hey," she said carefully. "Can I ask you something kind of awkward?" I raised an eyebrow. "Go ahead. Ethan wants to talk to you just for a minute." "Closure," he said. I sipped my drink, unbothered. "He's not looking for closure, Jess. He's looking for a reset button, and I'm not interested in pressing it." Jess sighed, lowering her voice. "Honestly, I don't blame you. He's not doing great. He told me Issa was the worst mistake of his life. She drained his savings, pushed everyone away, and now she's already moved on. He's been trying to patch things up with people, but I cut her off gently. It's not my job to help him rebuild what he chose to destroy." Jess nodded slowly. No protest, just a quiet acceptance that some bridges couldn't be rebuilt. The rest of the night, I let myself be present. I danced under the lights, laughed with friends I hadn't seen in years, ate cake without guilt. At one point, someone handed me a glass of champagne and said, "You seem lighter lately, Jean." Like something finally let go. I didn't explain. I didn't need to. The truth was written all over me. In the way I held myself, in the ease of my smile, in the peace that came from knowing I had walked away and never looked back. As the evening wound down, guests began saying their goodbyes. I stepped outside to call a car. And that's when it happened. Footsteps behind me, a hesitant pause. Jean Ethan's voice rasped, softer than I remembered. I turned calm and steady, ready to face him one last time. Ethan stood a few feet away, glass of wine dangling from his hand like an anchor. His eyes were hollow, his voice rough around the edges. "You really aren't going to say anything to me?" he asked. I looked at him, really looked. His shoulders hunched under the weight of choices he couldn't take back. The shine that once drew everyone in was gone, replaced by shadows of bitterness and regret. "I already said everything I needed to," I replied with my silence. He swallowed hard, shifting his weight. "I thought maybe after all this time you'd understand. Maybe we could talk." "Try again," I shook my head slowly. "You don't miss me, Ethan. You miss the version of me that carried your chaos without complaint. That woman isn't available anymore." His mouth opened, then closed. The truth seemed to land heavier than any insult ever could. "You've changed," he whispered, almost to himself. "Yes," I said simply. Turns out being treated like I wasn't enough was exactly the push I needed to realize I already was. For a moment his face softened, like he wanted to reach for the old script. Apologies, nostalgia, maybe even tears, but there was nothing left for it to give. My ride pulled up, headlights washing over us. I gave him a small nod. Not cruel, not triumphant, just final. Then I turned, opened the car door, and left him standing there, clutching a glass of wine like it might save him from drowning. No fireworks, no dramatic outburst, Just the kind of closure that comes when you finally stop waiting for someone else to see your worth. I don't think about Ethan much anymore. He became a lesson, not a loss. And me, I never had to fight to prove I was enough. I just had to walk away and let time prove it for